I mean, that's one thing that I've loved about our relationship since we met is that like at least once a month, but very often we're taking time to go sit at a Starbucks or I met you at the very first time we met was at Crown Burger, but I mean, we're always sitting down comparing notes. I think that's a great habit.
And it doesn't need to be big. I mean, how many times we just met at Starbucks? And I mean, I think they're looking at us like, are they going to buy something? Or are they just going to talk for 2 hours?
Sometimes Amber's like, oh, Starbucks with Josh? Okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something cheap and fun. Welcome to the
Flat Bill Investor Podcast.
And I'm Josh. And
I'm Zach.
And we come live from Utah.
Yes, sir.
This is episode 1. You're looking at episode 1. Pretty excited about it. I know this is going to be something that we improve upon over the time that we take.
Yeah, one thing that's nice, you've already got lots of podcast history. So I think
as a guest. So what we decided to do on episode 1 is just have you guys get to know us a little bit. We're going to talk about more of our business journey, our family, our fitness, our health, our business, entrepreneurs. We've both been entrepreneurs for 20 plus years. I've been mostly in the real estate realm. You know, I was in mortgages before, and then fast forward to residential real estate, commercial real estate, co-founded a company with a few different partners called ERC Specialists. Now I'm on a couple different ventures, you know, and still do a lot of commercial real estate. Actually, I'm going to stop there a little bit because I want people to understand what this show is about.
Yeah, so let's jump into the flat bill portion of the flat bill investor. Yeah. So obviously, if you're watching this, you'll see I've got a fairly bald noggin. And so I started wearing hats a long time ago. So I've just worn a hat forever. There's a lot of people that I've met and talked to for 3 or 4 years. And then someday they'll see me without a hat and they go, "You're bald." I'm like, yes, I've been bald.
That's why I wear hats.
I've been bald for a minute, but people just don't know because I've always got a hat on. And I know you know, with your boys, you've got a funny story about your the flat bill.
About 5-6 years ago, I was in lids and trying on hats, and I was like, I want to do a flat bill. And I put it on. My boys were like, "Dad, no, you can't pass for that." Well, over the course, and I do have hair, you know. Well, I wore a flat bill one time, and it looked pretty good. So I bought a few more. And from that point, I started wearing more of a hat, not a ball cap, but a flat bill hat, more than I was kind of doing my hair, right? Yeah. And so when you and I were talking, we were just kind of, I always say comparing notes. We were just eating, I think, lunch one day.
Well, that's one thing that I've loved about our relationship since we met is that like at least once a month, but very often we're taking time to go sit at a Starbucks or I met you at the very first time we met was at Crown Burger, which was a great place to start a relationship. So, but I mean, we're always sitting down comparing notes. I think that's a great habit.
And it doesn't need to be big. I mean, how many times we just met at Starbucks? And I mean, I think they're looking at us like, are they going to buy something? Or are they just going to talk for 2 hours? But yeah, so you and I were just sitting there comparing notes one day. And I said, man, I think the next venture, I want to start a podcast. And I've had a few people really encourage me to get into that. And then you were kind of saying, well, I thought about doing it too.
Yeah. Well, we had set up a small podcast studio in my old office. I just really never fleshed it out, but it came down to time.
When you and I were talking and we said, well, what do we do together? Because I've always just thought about doing it on my own. I had a name, I had a brand. I was getting ready to buy someone else's podcast name because I always liked it.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
And so I decided not to do it. And then, you know, we kind of slept on it for a couple of days, and I woke up with this idea of like, hey, you've been wearing a flat bill. I've been wearing a flat bill. Yeah. Let's call it Flat Bill Investors, which, you know, it's funny that it ends up being FBI.
Yeah. So
we find that out later.
When you see the FBI stuff out, it's
so we'll have some FBI. So we decided, you know, we want to give back to when we have guests on here, and that's why we don't have a guest on our first episode. Is when they're on here or when people request to be on our show, is we want to help their business out, you know, and how can we do that? We would love to wear their hats.
It's so funny that you're even saying that because one of the first times that I went on a trip with you was the time I met Andrew Sally, and we went to a meeting, and then it was followed up by some dinners and stuff. But in that meeting, a guy passed around a book, The Go-Giver. I think just like even from the very beginning, I knew that you kind of wanted to flex that giving muscle, and I've seen you do it. And you've been a good example to me about like always giving and helping and even finding people around you to say, okay, how can I give them work or how can I help them improve their business? And so for me, as we got to talking about that, I thought, okay, this is something that we can really help push forward. And, you know, whether it's our guests or whoever's on the show or even people just watching, that's the value is they can say, okay, what's the golden nugget I took from this episode that's going to help me, you know, push my business a little farther or make my life a little happier.
Internally, I think all of us should always, and the entrepreneurs that are listening and people that want to be entrepreneurs, some sort of business, you don't need to be an entrepreneur to have this, but you should always be leveling up.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
if you have a W-2 job and if you're making 100 grand a year, you should really try to get to 120.
Yeah.
You know, I think all of us have that. We should have that mentality, right?
Yeah.
And so what I've kind of noticed is when I've leveled up with different people, and I can think of 5 people right now that I swear every time I talk to them, they're just asking me what they can do for me. And these guys are 10 times of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right. And that they have that go-giver mentality.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you guys haven't read that book, definitely get The Go-Giver. It'll definitely change your mindset of going into it. And the one thing I've noticed too, of people I like to be around is people that aren't transactional. As I grew up, I had family that were very transactional. If they did something for you, they expected something in return. You know, and I grew up that way. And so I always kind of thought it was that way, but I didn't like it that way. And then when I read The Go-Giver, I'm like, that's exactly what I didn't like.
Yeah.
I don't like to be transactional.
Sure.
So how can I be someone that can give back? And I think that's why we started this podcast is how can we give back to people around us, you know, educate people, tell them about our story, our health story, our wellness story, our business failures and successes, because we want people to learn from that.
Yeah. Well, think of yourself, like you've been somebody that I've always looked at as you're always mentioning your mentors. And I think, okay, what if you, as I don't know how old you are, 44, as 44-year-old Josh, who's now had some level of success in business and real estate and other things. What if you had you when you were 19?
Yeah.
To really like walk you and hold your hand through things, like how much further could you be, and or how much happier, or the lessons that now you've learned. So it's like sharing that with other people. I love that.
Yeah. And, you know, kind of coming back to what we we're going to talk about with family and business, it kind of coincides with that, because I've been very blessed, but I've been very blessed on both sides. Meaning like I've had a ton of failures. I mean, Gunnar, he's my oldest. So talking about the family, I have 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls. My kids started school today in Morgan County, Morgan School District.
Oh yeah.
So my oldest is a senior. My second is a 9th grader. My daughter, she's my oldest daughter, 6th grade. And then my youngest is 4th grade. All started school today. And then my beautiful wife, we've been married since 2001. So I always have to do the math in my head, 23 years. But we've been so blessed, and because I always say you win or you learn. And I'm a basketball guy, and I've coached my kids in sports, especially in basketball. And I always told the kids I coached, which was a good comp team, we'd win a lot of tournaments and leagues and stuff. I'd always say we win or we learn. You know, if we have that L, that loss, but what can we learn from it? How can we learn? And I say that because I've been blessed with success, but I've also been blessed with learning from failures.
Oh, yeah. Well, I heard that you don't even buy large shirts anymore because you just take no L's.
Yeah,
is that
that's
right?
it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, good.
Like Gunnar said this about a year ago. He remembers when he was in 6th grade and there was a foreclosure notice on our door. Right. It was a couple of years after the mortgage meltdown. Yeah. And I was trying to work out a loan modification, and how he found out about it, his kids at school says, I heard you were moving. And they heard I was moving because they thought we were losing our house. Right. And we ended up saving it and getting a loan modification.
Sure.
And,
I mean, how many people did that though? That was huge. Yeah, that was crazy.
So it's been a challenge on that, but at that time, but I look at it as what a blessing, because that pushed me really hard. Yeah. Right. Oh yeah. So sometimes people see me or you now and they're like, wow, you guys have it made. Do we? Because we work so hard. Right. Yeah. And I encourage anyone that's listening to have that failure mentality almost. Yeah.
Well, that you have to get over it and learn how to fail and fail forward. That's one thing that I've always heard is fail forward. And that's even like today, if you really know me and know what I'm, what our business is about, we just started this pickleball club. Yep. And people go, oh my gosh, it must just be like easy. And it must just be so easy. And what people don't see is like the hours and hours of like, what are we doing here, or how do we improve, or how do we improve the customer experience, and pretty much consistently feeling like we're failing on a daily basis. But from the outside, you look at the club and people are in there playing and they're having fun and they're doing all these things. And from the outside, it might just look like it's all hunky dory, but we're like little ducks with our feet going a million miles an hour.
And that's business, right? And you're obviously with anything, there's a book called Who Not How. You're trying to build up a business where it's scalable and stuff and getting the right people. Yeah. And that's where you're at, because it's a grind. I use that. A lot of people use that term for the first, 6 to 24 months of business. Yeah. If it doesn't work in 24 months, it's going to be pretty tough to keep going. Sure. But if it kind of surpasses that 24-month piece, and then everyone has their own opinion, then it's going to be successful because you've figured out all those cracks and crannies with your business.
All the nuance. I was going to say, I don't know if it was Hormozy or I can't remember who said the quote, but he's like, most businesses fail because most entrepreneurs don't have 3 years of patience to make it work.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it gives you a little perspective of like, okay, it's maybe getting hit or miss, but it's funny because talking about going back to school, this summer we've spent so much time with kids because we've just been like hunkered down working.
Yeah.
So, okay, this summer they got to see their parents like building a business. And I'm like, that's a lesson that they've seen the calls, they've seen them, they've seen the things we've been doing, or even been like around us when we're on the phone. And it's been so interesting. See, my kids are 12, 10, and 7. So I've got 2 girls and then a little boy. And to even hear how their view on business things, or they'll see something and they'll be like, hey, you could put that in the pro shop. Like Sadie's my little salesperson. She'll say, hey, if you put this thing in here, you could sell it for this much money. And she's kind of getting a little grip on that. And so kind of going back to like our stories and our journeys, I think, thinking about what we can give back to people that are listening today. I think, okay, where can we dig to get some of these stories in our history? And even even right now, I can, I think we're going to do just fine with the amount of stories and lessons we can teach and things like that. And hopefully it becomes interactive with the people we're working with and add a lot of value. I think that's one of the biggest things for me is what we can do.
I've started so many businesses. Right. I told someone this the other day is I don't know how many businesses. I mean, 30, 40 businesses in probably 10 years. Right. Yeah. But the thing is you look at that, you're like, well, that's just, he doesn't know what he's doing or whatever you want to say. Yeah. But I always ran it thin, meaning like I tried to make it so I didn't spend a lot of money, but just time. Yeah. I was willing to put in the time to see if it could turn into something very profitable. Sure. Right. And someone just doesn't want to spend that time. And I looked at this podcast and I thought about the book when I read about with Gary Vee. And he talks about, he has it somewhere. He shows it the very first time he ever played himself live, like a selfie video. Yeah. And he's like, dude, look at myself. I'm like, hi, I'm Gary Vee. I sell, he sold wine, but then you see him now and it's like, he can be in front of, 100,000 people and he doesn't
I think one of the things about Gary Vee though, is that he's just so authentic and people always talk about how much he swears. And he's like, I grew up in New Jersey. Like that's my language. Yeah. And something about his level of authenticity, I think rings true with me too, is just be you, be authentically you. That's going to be a way that like people will be able to connect to you. If you put on that suit and tie mentality of like, I'm going to be a robot and put on this face, you don't really get to connect with people.
Well, it's much. Like, I mean, this is our first episode, right? Yeah. And we practiced once or twice. So I just know that there's gonna be a lot of like things that we're going to improve upon as we go along. And so hopefully you viewers stay with us. I also take it like, with my company, ERC Specialists, when I used to meet someone, they would say, hey, can you do a presentation for this group or whatever? And I do a presentation like, oh my gosh, dude, you're awesome. I'm like, the only difference between you and I right now is I've done 1,000 presentations. Yeah. You haven't done one yet.
But people don't know the history. Like you used to teach for Property Brothers. It's something that you talk about a lot, that you had to get on stage, and even some of your, going to Australia and going and teaching these things, they stick with people who hear it. And I go, oh man, he's got some time under the hood, doing these things and practicing. And, it shows anyway.
And I just know that when you and I continue to do this, it's going to be something that we continue to press upon, and get better and better. Yeah. So let's talk about the first time we met.
Okay.
I had that as a next subject. So you were just getting to allude to that. We talked about Crown Burger, but I remember you told me that you met me through someone, or someone told you.
Yeah, we were working on a storage unit project, and the guy in the storage units, he said, hey, I want you to meet. Oh, and the reason being is that you had just started, or you were trying to kind of recruit people to go. You were getting ERC ready to launch, and you started the Entrepreneurs Roundtable. Oh yeah. So it was a pay to play mastermind. Yep. It was actually the most that at that time I'd ever spent on a mastermind. So you told me, do you care if I say?
You can say.
So he said, okay, we went, this was maybe the second time though. We went golfing at the country club. Okay. Over at Ogden. And you said, hey, yeah, we're probably going to meet 4 times this year, but I'll put you in some rooms with some people. It's $10,000. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, I don't really know this guy. It's 4 meetings. So that's a pretty, just to go for a meeting. I didn't really know what it was about. Yeah. And then looking back now, I did join. So I said, and I told my wife, I said, hey, I'm going to join. We don't really know him, but I think it's going to be, he's going to be one of the guys I want to be around. I think it was really focusing on like the 5 people I'm around that I'm going to hopefully turn into.
What do they say? Your network is your net worth.
Yeah. Network is your net worth. And I just didn't have a lot of kind of like high producing or high level kind of friends that were doing a lot of entrepreneur things. So I was like, okay, this will be sweet. And that's where we went to Vegas, we went to Breckenridge. There was a couple things where I was able to get really good relationships with some people that now we've done a lot of deals with. And even if we're not doing deals, I get random texts or I randomly will reach out to someone, and it's people that I've met through that Entrepreneurs Roundtable. So, I mean, that's where I think we got put together, was like, hey, let's get introduced. But then I think we just hit it off.
When we first met him, Crownburger, I thought the same thing. Like, this is a dude that I definitely want to be friends with. And I'm glad you decided to invest. I always say that it's not paying the money, it's investing the money, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Because one of the things that I end with is investing in yourself. And we'll talk about that a lot. And I know, over the course of the next 100, 200 episodes, we're going to have a lot of different stories.
Oh, yeah.
We can't, we're going to try to really keep this to 15, 20 minutes with people. But looking at masterminds, it's funny that we're talking about that, because before that, I used to always try to find who's going to teach the best class, who's the best wholesaler, who's the best in real estate, who's the best this or that. And I was trying to find the best class, $5,000, $10,000, whatever it is. And someone then said, hey, there's this mastermind that's $25,000 a year. And I was like, wait, you have to pay yearly? And it was Scott Schill. So my mentor now.
Yeah.
I just had a hard time. Like, I'd never heard that before. And then I went to the first one and I was like, okay, now I see the benefit of this. And, that's what really not just propelled me in different entrepreneurs and success is you're talking to other people that have other businesses on top of what they're doing in commercial real estate.
Yep.
And it's starting to really click, like, okay, these are the people I need to get advice from, because they're open to failures. They're open to successes on whatever we're doing.
Yeah. So I do want to ask you one question. This is something that's really important to me. And as I've been around a lot of different people with different entrepreneurial skills and mindsets and things like that, I always ask, what book are you reading right now?
Right now.
Yeah, right now.
It's about starting businesses from the ground up. And actually, there's two of them, because my wife and I started doing a book called Value Creation Kid,
which I started because of you.
And if anyone has kids, that is the must read, listen book together.
If you're not even going to listen, the guys, they do these TikToks and reels that are just snippets of the book that are like awesome, talking about allowance and gigs and all sorts of stuff. So anyway, they're sweet. So what book are you reading?
Like building from business from the ground up.
Okay. Then I'm going to pivot a little bit. So what is your favorite book? A book that you have read, it was transformational for you, and that you would advise somebody to read?
Who, Not How. That's really what changed my life, is when I sat down with a guy named Clay Rockwood, and he says, have you read that book before? And I said, no. He goes, you should buy it yesterday. Yeah. The way you are.
Clay just texted me this morning. He got back from Iceland, and I had texted him a week or so ago. So
yeah,
anyway,
so he's the one that
Clay.
really encouraged me to read that book. I did it. I did it that day. And it's changed my life ever since. So I highly encourage people, and there's books behind it. So that's my book. What about yours?
Love it.
Which favorite book?
Well, it's funny you just asked, because I was going to say, not Ego is the Enemy is one of my favorite books. So transformational, a few years ago. It's Ryan Holiday, talks about this Stoic movement. And one thing that I'll probably touch on this a lot is try to live by 4 principles every single day to live a really kick-ass life and to really milk everything I can out every day. And my 4 pillars are, I want to make sure that I've worked today, that I've played today, that I've given today, and that I've connected with somebody.
Awesome.
And I know that if I get up to if I cut, tonight, I don't wake up tomorrow morning, I'm at the pearly gates and St. Peter says, hey, how was your last 24 hours?
It's a big day.
It's not going to be, hey, it was 24 hours of watching Netflix and I ate a pizza and I just sat in my room, and it was like, I had a killer day.
Yeah.
I was able to get all those things done. So I've really tried to focus on
those.
Well,
Jimmy Valvano said in one of his speeches, he goes, that's one hell of a day.
Yeah. And that's
because he talks about.
And I think if we can stack up enough of those hell of a days in front of each other, we'll look back and be like, man, we're living good. So
awesome.
Yeah. Love it.
Well, cool. I think we're going to wrap it up. What I would tell everybody, is, thanks for being patient with us. And, as we continue on this journey, love to hear any type of feedback as we go along. Yeah. So how they get a hold of us, my handle is the Josh Z. It'll be in the notes probably on this YouTube channel. And what about yours?
Yeah, mine's Zach. It's Zach_E Spencer.
ZACH.
Yeah, ZSCH. But we'll have it on. If you look at the Flat Bill, it's called the Flat Bill Investor. That's on Instagram and Facebook, the Flat Bill Investor. Find us on all the other socials too with that, and on YouTube. But that'll have links to us personally. But yeah, love it. I'm pumped. I'm actually really excited to do this. Can't wait for our first couple of guests. We've got some big names lined up, and can't wait to meet with them too and see what we can create here. So it's good.
This is Josh and Zach signing off with
the Flat Bill,
until
baby.
Next time. Invest in yourself. Invest in your future. Thanks, guys.